Hello class, my name is Andrew Fernandez and this is my video discussion for Unit 4. And last week was a tough week with didn't have internet most of the week, so um, I hope the rest of my class was able to recover and get back on schedule with this class. So just my prayers to y'all to getting through last week. But to focus on this week, my question revolves around the propaganda um, in Richard Vincent's chapter on global communication and propaganda. So the question I'll be looking at is question number 2. What is black, white, and gray propaganda, and how do they differ from one another? So just a little bit of my understanding of propaganda. Propaganda is described as the persuasive process of communicating to the public at large. And the idea of propaganda is to reinforce social norms and attitudes while also working towards changing the minds towards public opinion. So in today's society, and how I better understand propaganda, it is through the terms that are most used today. So most of the time we hear words like public relations, publicity, marketing, public affairs, and advertising. So this is a way that we share our messages to persuade a society to either be a consumer of a product, to sell a product, to convince them to think a certain way or follow a certain attitude or norm, as I stated a little while ago. So with the rise of social media and communication through technology, we have seen a rise in the importance of understanding propaganda and where that message comes from, and the credibility of the messages, and that's what I'll get to here in a minute. So according to Taylor in 2003, this is the quote that I pulled straight from the chapter that I thought really explained propaganda probably the best. Propaganda is simply a process by which an idea or opinion is communicated to someone else for a very specific reason. A speech, a sermon, songs, art, radio, television, pictures, one person or millions of people. Propaganda is designed in the first place to serve the interests of its source. So again, in today's society, we see that through commercials, we see that through radio advertisements, we see that through the PR of, let's say, political campaigns. They're trying to get a message across, and that can be seen as propaganda. And also the news we see every day through different media outlets. In this chapter, we learn that propaganda is classified and defined by its accuracy and the credibility of its sources. And there are 3 labels used to determine the accuracy of propaganda. And so going back to my question, what is black, white, and gray propaganda, and how do they differ from one another? So those 3 terms are white, black, and gray. White propaganda means the highest level of credibility and accuracy because it came straight from the source. White propaganda is seen by the public as acknowledged government programming, and during this time it became the voice of broadcast news in 44 different languages. So again, white propaganda comes straight from the source. It's credible, it's accurate because it came straight from the inside. Black propaganda. So black propaganda usually comes from a hidden source, and this approach often uses intentional lies. Enemies of the government mostly use this type of propaganda to demoralize a message from the government. An example of this type of propaganda was seen during the Second World War. The Japanese radio Tokyo tainted war news to provoke violence between men in battle. This media outlet was actually controlled by 20 female announcers that were known as the Tokyo Rose. So what they did was they circulated notices purposely about the U.S. Army warning American soldiers to avoid sexual contact with Filipino women due to the likelihood of contracting a disease. The Japanese hoped that the Filipinos would become angry and turn against the Americans. So again, those messages that were being sent out were considered an example of black propaganda. The third and final type of propaganda is gray propaganda, which does not have an identifiable author, and the accuracy of the information cannot be verified. Even at the conclusion of the event, the truth about the government's involvement would remain unknown and covered in uncertainty with gray propaganda. And the best example of this type of propaganda is when dealing with the CIA operations. So they'll never verify if something was true. Or yeah, I take that back. It's not that they would not verify it's true. That in order to protect the government, they cannot verify where the source came from. So again, it's been a crazy few weeks. I wish my classmates the best of luck this week for catching up, and I'm looking forward to hearing your responses. Thank you.